Hey guys, we're here with Courtney and Markeisha, and we have a topic that I know that all kids love to play. Let's just say that. Oh, I didn't say hi, Courtney.
Hey, that's okay. I'm here. And all kids do want to play. They do.
Yes, all kids want to play. And we were talking behind the scenes because we're always talking behind the scenes about just quickly when I was teaching, how I just didn't notice how playgrounds and like ADA is just the minimum, and how when my students in wheelchairs, yeah, they could get down the ramp, which is ADA, but they couldn't play with the big ship that my kids like to play on, my own kids, because there was wood chips, so they could get down to the swings or whatever, but they couldn't access the swings or the playground. What am I trying? The playground,
Yeah, the
not
structure,
playground
like
area.
the
Thank
between
you.
where they left the cement to get
Yes.
over to the actual thing. So I call
Yes.
that gaps in planning, that somebody who
Yes.
planned it doesn't actually use an adaptive aid or
Right.
have somebody who uses a wheelchair or a walker or anything, because they would know that wood chips don't work.
Right.
So
That's terrible. They're supposed to will. They're supposed to just go down. They
yep.
could get there and just supposed to look at the swings and look at the stuff. That's not fun. That's
Yep.
terrible.
Yep. So, like you said, you noticed it when you started teaching kids that needed adoptive aids. And then you're like, wait a minute, how do they get over here?
Right.
And my husband has heard me rant about this for far
Mhm.
too many years. But I will say the law says they have to have a accessible spot, a handicap spot. And so they have that. So they have accessible parking, and I have my permit, and I roll up and we park there. And I told him that's where the accessibility stops. Hannah ramps up. She goes up the ramp to the sidewalk.
Uh-huh.
Maybe she can get to a picnic table. And that is the extent of most of her park experiences, because they don't have a ramp. They don't have the, specialized turf that they can roll over, this rubber.
Mhm.
And so it's really, really frustrating because, again, I tell people my tax dollars built that playground,
Okay.
and they build these things, and then to not have your child included is so frustrating. But I am so proud of my city where I live, because they've made a commitment that no new playgrounds will be built that aren't fully accessible. So they have the specialized turf, they have the swings that Hannah can sit on. You call them like a potato, where they can twirl. I call it adaptive teeter totter, kind of, where they have like the little bucket seat.
Mhm.
So Hannah can lean back against it and spin and bounce. And she loves that. Roll up and play like the musical thing. She likes
Yeah.
to hit that. So our newest one here in my town has it. And so to have the town have that commitment to say, now that we know that we should have been doing better, that's our commitment. If they get remodeled or they build a new one, they're going to be fully accessible. So that's great. The schools is a place where right away I realized, why do they not have a place for my daughter to play?
Right.
And so I've told a story before in different platforms, but when I say locked, okay, so if Hannah's in her wheelchair and they lock her brakes, she's
Mhm.
locked. She can't undo her own brakes currently,
Mhm.
and back then either. So they would roll her out. And then when I say she's locked in her wheelchair, that's what I mean. Her wheelchair wheels are locked. And she was just watching all the kids play.
Terrible.
And I broke my heart. I was like, well, what is Hannah doing at
Right.
recess? Why would she want to come out here and watch everyone else play? And
Right.
when I say that, like, it's not like the teachers or the aides were intentionally being
Right.
mean.
Right.
It's just no one had kind of thought, like, how can we bring Hannah into the play, or how can we make this work for her? And so we started with like um, toys and bubbles and things that were portable, and then they would kind of set that up, and then naturally attracted kids to come to Hannah. and play with her. But her kindergarten year, I started to grow my little advocacy wings. I call them baby wings. I was a rookie. I did made some mistakes, could have done things differently, but I tried it out. And I was like, I want something that she can actually go to. And I want a swing. Hannah loved to swing. I felt like it would be an easy win. Like, to install a whole new playground set, okay, that can be pricey. I still think I'm advocating for that, but like, let's start with like a swing.
Right.
And at first, I was told that the other kids could get hurt on the adaptive swing, so they weren't gonna put in the adaptive swing. That did not land well with me.
Right.
I quite honestly, I was like, and the other students can get hurt on the monkey bars. Are we removing the monkey bars? Are we removing the slide? Like, and so they saw real quick that that wasn't going to work for me. So they ended up putting in those, like, I'm calling it like a mushy, it's the rubber stuff that you can roll on. So they made it from the sidewalk. They made an entrance, and then they put the rubberized stuff down, created a swing for her and any other student who might need it. Like, let's say they can't sit in the swing without having the back support. They could use the swing, and it had a harness that came down. And so she got her swing. But when she moved over to first grade, they said, don't even worry about it, Mrs. Burnett. We've already started, because at that time the kindergarten play structure was over here. And then like the other kids was over here, like pre-K and kindergarten play together, and then the main playground. Like, don't worry, Miss Burnett. Over the summer, we're getting that swing set up for Hannah. Like, she's gonna have her swing over on the first grade side, and that made me really happy. And it's sad at the same time, because I was like, so did no other kid ever? Yes, there was other kids that wanted to play that didn't get to play. And so there is rules in place, things you can do, and then there's things that you can help, provide the change. So one of my clients that hired me to help like with some school issues, accessible bus, that sort of thing, she said, I've done some research, and the school didn't even make their playground to the ADA law, the law that says if your school was built at this time, this is the minimum you have to have in order to meet the law. And I said, okay, so we went back and we got the school district to come up to code, but they would not budge on going beyond the ADA. So even though they could do more, they were willing to be like, well, this is what the law says we have to do for this structure. And that annoys me so much, because it's like, that's the minimum. And, have you ever heard the sentence at the IEP? Well, those minutes are just the minimum. We will do more. It's just like the minimum.
Yeah, that's what
we're going to put. Here's another example where they could do more, but they're only made to do the minimum. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that in there. I know we're talking about playgrounds, but it's like, that's what they're legally promising you. That's what the ADA minimum is, the minimum they have to do. And some people only want to do the minimum. That's why laws are important, to try to kind of shift what that is. But your school board is somewhere else that we can go. And I don't know about you, probably before 2018, I didn't really go to school boards. I didn't really understand my local elections. I voted, but not like, wow, I could change my town or my city by voting for city council. And this person is, what do they feel about accessible playgrounds? Like, how do they feel about this? I could change the code or standard in my city by electing people who want to see change. So I went down with my school board, but I would say have a little plan. So I recruited, and I recruited hard, but I didn't get a lot of volunteers that want to go down to the school board, not on an agenda item, just show up and plop something in their lap. And you know who went with me?
Who went with you?
A high school student. A high school student who started volunteering and getting to know my daughter's class and the different students in there, and realized, like, why aren't they going to prom? Like, what about this? Why aren't they out here for that? And so she's in a student council. So she started planning things and getting more involved with those classrooms. And so I recruited her, and she showed up, and she was in like a power suit. She like outshined me. Like, I was like, oh, okay. She's in a power
Always
suit.
the students. That's what I say.
Yeah, she didn't come to play. She came to deliver. And her speech, you have like 3 minutes usually, is like your max. So you got to like come in with a plan,
Yep.
So we came in, and I was talking about how we're revamping and remodeling a bunch of schools. We're building new schools because our town is growing. And I said, I just want to point out, we have an opportunity to make these playgrounds inclusive. We could partner with different business owners or PTO, PTA to bridge the cost difference, but we have an opportunity to change how we build our schools and how we plan out our schools, because we're building new ones like today, like right now. So I was talking about that and why they're important and what message it sends. And then another mom showed up. So it was me, another mom, and this high school student. And they listened to both of us moms. But when the high school student got up, she made one of the, I call him a football player. I'm judging. I don't know if he's a football player. He looked like he used to play football. Okay. He used to play football. And I saw him wiping away tears. And she was talking about how inclusion at the high school had changed her life, and how she was just on a mission to make sure the kids were more included in the school and the things that she thought we could do as a school district. And that really, really hit home. And I feel like they listened to us, but when like a youth came and they were speaking, they were like, contacted her after the school board meeting, was like, tell us more about what you're doing. How is that working? How did you get it going? Because this is at one high school. We have two. We're working on a third. So we're going quite a bit. So they wanted to say, how can we replicate this at the other high schools?
Right.
And then that student went on to plan a unified prom and invite all the students, and had accessibility. And then at a high school, there's not necessarily a playground, but there's common areas, there's prom, there's picnic tables. So we were talking about how there's not a lot of accessible seating for them to kind of join in at a table or to come sit by their peers. And so there's power in those different places that families can go. And I'm not sure which order this podcast will go with our other one we just recorded, but you were talking about the courage and saying, being okay with being the first, or being the one to kind of say, I'm going to ask for this change. And even though that's been uncomfortable, I haven't really enjoyed the role, but I just feel like God keeps putting me to be first for that. Like, open the door, like pry them open. I make like this little bit of a gap, and then other parents can come in, and it keeps widening and widening until the door's open, right? And we have that. So don't settle if your kid needs access to the playground, or even if they don't. Like I tell people, if you see that your school's playground isn't inclusive, you don't have to have a child with a disability to see that that's not right, and that's not fair, and that's not equitable. How can we change it so we're not waiting for someone to say, I need this rubberized ramp, I need this to get here? What if the parents at the school said, hey, I listened to Markeisha and Courtney's podcast, and they were talking about inclusive playgrounds, and I wanted to let you guys know we do not have an inclusive playground at our school, and I want to change that, because I want every student at our school to say, I belong here. I want to make friends. So yeah, I kind of went on like a soapbox moment there, but it's like, we were talking about, and this from school, so you can speak to it, but a lot of times, if your child is in a kind of a self-contained type classroom or away from gen ed students, a good chunk of the day, whether that's for therapies, interventions, we have the reasons why that happens.
Right.
But playground, lunchtime, and electives are high inclusion times. I'll just say common inclusion times.
Right.
How can my daughter go make friends and have people invited to come play with her if she can't even get to where they're playing?
Exactly. Exactly. How do we expect those things there's not even opportunity to. There's not even opportunity to because it's not accessible. She
Right.
could like to swing. You said Hannah loves to swing, and there's tons of kids that love to swing. It's just something that a lot of kids generally love to do, and we call it the potato swing too.
Yeah.
Kids love to swing. So the thing about the potato swing is that all kids could use it. So if
Yep.
there's a potato swing around, then all the kids can use it. The
Right.
other
If they have a
swings,
sensory need to spin
right?
or twist, they can use it.
Yeah,
If they're maybe, there's some kids that have trouble balancing and building up their core when they're little, that is something universal design. The thing I love about that term is when we do universal learning, universal design, you're helping any student that could
right,
use visual support, right? Or you're helping any student that would rather use a ramp, maybe for whatever reason, than the stairs. It's easier to do it at the time that you're building it. It's much harder to go back and say, how can we make this inclusive? Because you did the building structure and the blueprint not inclusive. So
right.
I always say, talk to your city and your town,
Yeah,
your school district, your school board, because you voted them in, and they're there to serve the community, and they need community input to know what things the community wants. So we have to be willing to show up and say, we're a community member. My son or daughter's a community member, and this is something that we're not serving this portion of the community very well. How can we be more inclusive and
right,
give them the opportunity to learn? And it's not going to happen. This kind of work, like a lot of our work, right? It takes time, but you will see the shift in the change in your community when you keep kind of showing up, talking about it, dropping them an email, sending them all those things. It lets them know, like, I haven't forgotten. I came to the school board meeting and I talked to you about this. I see this new school going up. I'm excited for you to share with me how you're making that more inclusive, and
right,
hold them accountable to that. And just know, I guess I want parents to walk away from this, our little short and sweet podcast here of saying, you can ask for your playground to be modified. You can start with your local principal and your PTA and PTO, but if you're getting kind of shut down, you're not being heard, then go to the school board meeting, show up, talk about it. And if you have to do it over a couple of board meetings, because you can only talk for a couple minutes at a time, then set up like, we're going to talk about what is inclusion. And then the next time you're going to come with a couple of ideas of how they can do that. And so you're educating and advocating. And over a few times, if you keep showing up, you will get change, and you will get, I call them allies. And what happened after that meeting is a couple moms were there for rezoning of a different school. So they weren't really there for our issue. But they're like, I had no idea.
right.
Tell me more. What can I do to get our school on board? That's where this podcast and what we want to do is including every parent and having people learn about different issues that might not affect them, but might be affecting one of their friends or loved ones and community member, and say, now that I know that, I want to be bringing that up when I'm in circles with people who could listen to that issue. I want to make sure I'm talking about my friend Markeisha was telling me about how her students couldn't get to the playground, and I don't want any of our students not being able to get to the playground. What can we do with this year's budget to move towards a more inclusive playground? if we're already going to replace the wood chips, could we do this type of thing for a little bit more money? And then we at least have the pad. And then we can, next year's budget comes out, could we get a ramp added? You know what I mean? You can start chipping away at making your school more inclusive by saying, what can we do this year to move us closer to that goal?
And I started before I had a child with a disability, advocating for that, because I was like, it's not fair. My students can only get down the ramp, but they can't play because of the wood chips. And created a PowerPoint, because the teacher in me creates PowerPoints. And
visuals are good.
And went to the mayors, and I didn't know they're like, so what do you want? And I was like, well, I don't know exactly what I want, but this is what we need to happen. I want, more inclusive playgrounds, and here's my PowerPoint. And actually, I have that PowerPoint, and I'm going to link it to this podcast so they can
awesome.
maybe share it with there. It's still, I might upgrade it, because that's how I am. But this is it, the basis of it, and maybe they can share it with their cities. And
I think that's a great idea, because we always want you guys to leave with actionable thoughts. Yep. And then if we can do something that you can actually print, relook at, that's going to just make it easier for you to go do something that might be out of your comfort zone. You're like, I'm going to take Markeisha's PowerPoint, Courtney's 3 tips for starting a grassroots movement. And we're going to go over here and we're going to do that. So we'll leave you guys
with for all the parks.
Swings for all the parks. So we'll leave you guys with that in the show notes. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to us on our different platforms and say, hey, this is what I was thinking. What are some ideas to get this off the ground? And that's what we love to talk about. So that won't be an inconvenience at all. We were happy to help you guys.
Yep. So we will be back with you on the next episode. Are these episodes?
Yeah, I guess they're episodes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Follow us. So you get them, you can download them. And of course, you can always leave a review of your favorite episode or what things you want to hear us talk about. We're always listening and want to bring you guys just the best information we can and laughs along the way. So
thanks for growing with us. Have a good day or evening.
Bye.